Hello, and thanks for joining us for this News Center Maine special report. I'm Brian Yacono. Just this morning, Governor Janet Mills announcing she is suspending her campaign for U.S. Senate, citing now financial reasons. As you can see right here, Graham Platner is live in Augusta addressing this developing news. We want to go to that live.
And her lifelong career serving Mainers as Attorney General, as District Attorney, and in the legislature. We both got into this race because we knew how critical it is to defeat Susan Collins. And her decision today reflects a commitment to that project. I look forward to working closely with her between now and November to do just that, to defeat Susan Collins and turn this seat blue again. The race has never been about me or really about one person. It's about a movement of working Mainers who are fed up with being robbed by billionaires and the politicians who own them. We are now taking back our power. That is what this campaign is. We will defeat Susan Collins. We will go to Washington and we will start tearing down the system that for too long has forgotten and written off the people who make Maine and this country what it is. People have said this campaign came out of nowhere, but those people don't know Maine. This movement came out of a lot of somewheres. From working waterfronts that have worked far too long, only to be pushed to the brink. From towns where the closest hospital is now hours away. For workers who pay more in taxes than billionaires. For loggers who are just one mill closure away from bankruptcy. And for young people who want a home to call their own. And for seniors who are ready to demand the dignity that they deserve. For decades, this system has taken, piece by piece, store by store, hospital by hospital, shore by shore, town by town. They have taken from us. And they took so much that they began to think that we didn't exist at all. But they don't know Maine. They don't know the power that we have here. And we are taking back what is ours. It is my absolute honor to be joined here today by all of the legislators who have served this state faithfully, who have stood up to those in power, who have stood up to the interests of corporations, stood up to the interests of business over people. Everyone who's come here today to endorse me, it is an absolute honor to have you here. I very much recognize that the project that we are engaged in, this is just a continuation of work that has happened for a very, very long time. And so to everyone who's here, I really want to say thank you very much. And thank you for all your work, all of these years, building the foundation that we all get to build on now, to build a state and to build a country that represents the people who build it. Thank you.
Thank you, Graham. My name is Mike Tipping. I represent 26 small towns and communities in northern Penobscot County. And I serve in the state Senate, and I'm proud to endorse Graham Platner. My rural district, I won by 1 percentage point, and President Trump won it by 2. We need Graham because we need a voice for all of Maine in the U.S. Senate. And we need Graham because Susan Collins has betrayed the people she was elected to serve. While Maine, the state of Maine, was suing the Sackler family for their role in the opioid epidemic that terribly damaged so many families in rural Maine, Susan Collins was voting to protect them and then taking their money for her campaign. Private equity firms that are buying up hospitals and paper mills and nursing homes and chopping them up for parts and closing them down and leaving communities shattered, she voted to protect them, and she's taking their money. We're about to see, with the announcement this morning, a change in this race, and we're about to see an ungodly amount of money spent in Maine. Hundreds of millions of dollars, more than ever before, and we're going to be flooded with ads. And we should get angrier every time we see during the nightly news or during a baseball game or in the middle of a YouTube video, one of those ads, because we should remember that they were paid for by selling out Maine people, selling out to wealthy and powerful interests from out of state. This whole corrupt bargain needs to end. We need someone who will stand up for regular people in the United States Senate. We need Graham Platner. Thank you. And I'd like to introduce Representative Nina Milliken.
Thank you, Senator Tipping, and thank you to Graham Platner. Thank you also for calling out the Sackler family in Purdue Pharma, because I am one of the families that suffered immensely at the hands of the OxyContin epidemic. I'm a person in long-term recovery. My name is Nina Milliken. It's the honor of my life to serve as the state representative for the Blue Hill Peninsula, not very far from where Graham and his wife live. Down East Maine is the most beautiful place in the entire world, and it's a place where fishermen and farmers could eke out a good life years and years ago, but that no longer feels true on the coast of Maine. People with deep roots in the community that I live in and I represent have been priced out of their homes, the homes that they have built for generations, that they helped create those communities that they're being pushed out of. The contrast couldn't be more stark. Not long ago, I was delivering food to friends and neighbors who are having a hard time in the community I live in, and I looked out over the Blue Hill Bay and saw David Geffen's yacht floating just offshore. While the communities I serve are pooling resources to feed our friends and our neighbors, there's unimaginable wealth sitting right there. That's a system that is fundamentally broken. So the question is, what do we do about it? First off, we're going to send Graham Platner to the United States Senate. We're going to start there. Graham is the type of leader that we don't see often enough. He tells the truth, even when it's hard and uncomfortable. He refuses to fall in line with the status quo, that demands our silence. And he understands that the path forward isn't about dropping to our knees for powerful people. It's about standing up for the people. At a moment when our democracy is under considerable strain, we need leaders who are willing to be clear about what's at stake. The answer to rising authoritarianism is not moderate half measures or band-aids on severed limbs. It's building a movement that actually delivers for the people, one that's grounded in fairness, dignity, and economic justice. That's why this race matters so much, and it's why I am proud, really proud, to stand here today and offer my full, unequivocal endorsement for Graham Platner for the United States Senate. I've never been more excited to cast a vote for anyone for Congress. And I have the also amazing honor to introduce one of my favorite colleagues from the Deep South, South Portland, Representative Matt Beck.
So about a year ago, I got a call from an old college friend who's a clam digger down east to tell me that he was coming to Portland for the day, asking me if I wanted to get together for lunch with him and a couple of his friends. One friend worked in the building trades, and the other was an oyster farmer named Graham Platner. Over lunch, we talked about a lot of things, a little bit about my legislative work, but a lot more about unions, working class struggles, and how we can work to improve the lives of people who are struggling and failing under the weight of a federal government and a system that couldn't care less about them. I left lunch that day very impressed with Graham, but not expecting to ever hear from him again. I'm glad to say that I was wrong about that. During this campaign, Graham has shown that he is willing to work hard to listen, to learn, and to try to find a way to help working class Mainers improve their lives during these unprecedented times. That's why I'm so proud to endorse Graham Platner for the U.S. Senate. And with that, I'll turn things over to Senator Chip Curry.
Hello, everybody. I'm Senator Chip Curry. I represent the 26 rural, coastal, and island communities of Waldo County, and I am very proud to be endorsing Graham Platner today. I met Graham months ago at the Searsport Community Building. We were sitting on folding chairs and tables spread out for a group of mobile home residents who recently had their mobile home park bought out by an out-of-state corporation. And they were frightened and they were angry They're frightened because they couldn't, their affordable housing was looking a lot less affordable. Rents were going up, services were going down. And we spent a long time listening. Matter of fact, at that time, I only knew him as Graham. I didn't know his last name. I just thought this interesting guy to my left. And towards the end of the meeting, he stood up and shared that he didn't do what I thought typical politicians do. I expected him to say, I hear you, I'm going to be working for you, you can vote for me and I will be fixing this. He didn't say that at all. Graham's an organizer at heart. He said, be cautious of people that will come forward and tell you that. You have the power. You need to be organizing. You need to be learning the context of how power is being used against you, the economic and political power, and organize and help. And he helped them and motivated them to do that. Graham is an organizer at heart. And we are at a time in our democracy, a time in the state and the country when we need a nationwide, statewide pro-democracy movement, not just that strengthens our democratic institutions, but also makes sure that they are serving the people of Maine and not the economic and political elites. And for that reason, I am very proud to be endorsing Graham Platner. At this point, I'd like to introduce Representative Valley Geiger.
Good morning. I just want to say I am like, my feet aren't even on the ground. I am so excited about today. Not because our governor had to submit to the inevitable and suspend her campaign, but because of what it says about the politics of what is possible. We are at a tipping point in Maine and in this country, finally. You know, I grew up, my dad was career military. He died when I was just short of my 7th birthday. And I didn't know until I was an adult that the benefits that I received, free health care, my mother received a widow's pension, we had Social Security, that I went to college with the help of the Department of Defense. I didn't know that was because my dad died in the Air Force. I thought that's what America was. I thought we held each other up when tragedy hit. I thought we made sure that we all thrived. And it wasn't until I was an adult that I discovered that only because my dad just wasn't a regular guy who maybe got hit by a bus at the age of 32, but instead was a member of the Air Force, that I got to live in a fairly secure middle-class life and be the first person in my family to go to college. And I have been waiting for that moment when the rest of America would say, everyone deserves that. So when I first heard Graham Platner many, many months ago say, why do I get health care because I had to fight in a stupid war? Why doesn't everyone get health care? I knew I had found my person. And I have been a strong Graham supporter ever since. And I am delighted to reintroduce him to you for further words. And I couldn't be happier to feel like the message and the messenger is aligned with the moment. Thank you, Graham Platner.
I can't stress how much of an honor it is to be endorsed by people who have been doing this work for so long. We are lucky in Maine. We are lucky to have a politics at the local and state level that is still accessible, to have politicians and people in power who still stand up for those in their communities who can't sometimes stand up for themselves. That's the legacy behind me, and that's the legacy that we are now moving forward with in taking to Washington. We need a politics now that not only represents people, working people in the state, but a politics that is representative of them. We need people who work for a living in places of power because we are the ones who know the daily struggles of the system we are living in. And it is an absolute honor to be endorsed by people who have known that truth for a very long time and have been fighting for the working families of Maine. So thank you all so much. I really appreciate it.
We're going to do a couple questions, but then we have to get them out of here. Just raise your hand if you have a question.
Are you hoping to get Governor Mills' endorsement, and what would that mean?
I reached out to the governor this morning, giving her my thanks for her decades of service to this state. I'm very much looking forward to working with her closely as we move forward.
Bonnie?
Hey, what do you say to voters who wanted to vote for Governor Mills and trying to get them on your side now?
We need to beat Susan Collins. That's what this project has been about since the beginning. That is exactly what the governor got in it to do as well. And I think we all at this moment need to come together and recognize that building power for working people across the state, that's how we're going to do it. And so I very much ask them to support us because the governor and I have been essentially engaged in the same project, which is eventually beating Susan Collins in November.
Ben?
Have you heard from Senator Schumer, and do you expect to soon?
We have had reach out from the DSCC, but I have not spoken to anybody yet.
Do you expect this? How is this going to change your campaign at all, especially with the primary not quite resolved, still one opponent, but how's it changed things?
I'm going to take a nap. But look, and I've been asked this question a lot over the past few weeks about if we're transitioning. I just want to say we are doing something very different. The campaign that we have built, the organizing focus, the field operation that we've put together, this is something that does not look like most campaigns. We are trying to build a broad coalition of working class power in the state of Maine. That's what we're up to. And quite honestly, that looks the same. What we've been doing, the accessibility, the town halls, I'm going to take maybe a little bit of a break to catch up on my sleep, but we're going to continue doing exactly that because at the end of the day, that is the kind of politics we are trying to build, and the only way to do it is to put in the work.
But no breaks now, so we gotta go. Sorry guys, thank you.
Thank you all very much.